If you think Dora the Explorer was just a harmless kids show, you're wrong. I saw something that changed me forever. I shouldn't even be telling you this. If anyone at Nickelodeon knew I still had fragments of it saved, I'd probably get a cease and desist or worse. They called it a lost pilot, but that's a lie. It wasn't a pilot. It was a message. An episode that aired once at 3 a.m. years ago before being yanked from every schedule, scrubbed from archives, and buried so deep that even hardcore cartoon collectors whisper about it like it's a curse. I didn't believe it either, not until I saw it with my own eyes. And trust me, once you hear what was hidden inside that episode, you'll wish you never pressed play. When I think back to being a kid, Dora the Explorer always felt like background noise. Bright colors, goofy songs, that repetitive call-and-response format. Dora asking where the bridge was, Boots clapping like he just solved world peace, and Swiper popping up to steal something before the inevitable Swiper no swiping chorus. It was harmless, almost comforting, the kind of thing that lulled you into believing the world was simpler back then. But what if I told you Dora wasn't made for kids at all? That behind the pastel jungles and smiling animals, something darker was stitched into the fabric of the show. I didn't think about it much until recently. I'd been going through a rough patch, and like most people I turned to nostalgia, digging through old forums and archives, hoping to find pieces of childhood to distract me. That's when I stumbled across something I wasn't supposed to. It was buried in a thread on an old cartoon forum, one of those corners of the internet that feels abandoned yet somehow alive, like the servers themselves are watching you. Most of the posts were harmless nostalgia, screenshots of episodes, toy collections, fan theories, but one link stopped me cold. The file was labeled simply, Dora Lost Ep Final Avi. The comments underneath weren't like the others, they weren't jokes or theories, they were warnings. Don't download this unless you want nightmares. She'll see you if you watch. Someone even claimed Nickelodeon moderators had tried to delete the post a dozen times, but it kept reappearing. I should have taken the hint. I should have closed the tab and forgotten about it. But of course, like an idiot, I clicked play. I can't tell you everything yet, not yet, but the first seconds already felt wrong. The familiar theme song was there, but slower, warped like a record dragging underwater. And then Dora looked straight at me. At first glance, it looked like any other episode. Dora appeared on screen, standing in that cheerful cartoon meadow, her pink shirt and bobbed hair cut exactly as I remembered. But she didn't move, she didn't bounce or wave. She just stood there, staring at the camera for far too long, her smile frozen like a mask. When she finally spoke, her voice wasn't the chipper, high-pitched tone burned into my childhood memory. It was slower, lower, almost adult, like someone else was speaking through her. "Hola," she said, but it came out distorted, almost dragging. I waited for the map to pop out, for the song to start, but nothing happened. The background seemed dimmer, colors muted, like a storm cloud had rolled over the cartoon sky. Boots stood beside her, silent, his eyes wide and unblinking. Then Dora leaned closer to the screen, her pupils stretching unnaturally dark. She whispered, "Do you know where we're going? It's not on the map." I know it sounds insane, but I swear she wasn't asking in character. She was asking me. And in that moment I realized this wasn't just an episode, it was something else entirely. The longer I watched, the more wrong it felt. Dora didn't sing. She didn't ask the usual questions about which path to take or where Swiper might be hiding. The formula I'd grown up with, the repetition, the pauses for kids to shout answers, was gone. Instead, she just walked in silence, the sound of her footsteps crunching against dead leaves. I didn't even know leaves existed in her world. Then, without warning, she stopped and turned her head toward the screen. Her expression was flat, drained of anything childlike. "Don't look away," she whispered. "I need you." A shadow flickered behind her and Swiper appeared. Only this wasn't the goofy trickster I remembered. His fur was matted, his grin warped into something closer to a grimace. And instead of trying to steal, his voice cracked as he begged, "Dora, please stop." The sound wasn't cartoonish, it was guttural, disturbingly human. That's when I felt it, a weight pressing against me, as if the air in my room had thickened, as though the episode itself had become aware I was there. Dora didn't answer him. She just turned away, her smile curling unnaturally wide, and started walking again, this time into a forest I'd never seen in any episode before. The forest didn't look like anything that belonged in a children's cartoon. The trees were too tall, their bark too black, their branches curling like skeletal fingers against a dim gray sky. Yet beneath the cartoon filter, I caught glitches, quick flashes of what looked like real woods, grainy and black and white, as if actual footage had been spliced into the animation. Dora walked slowly, humming something low and tuneless until she reached a clearing. That's when I saw them, broken toys scattered on the ground, their faces cracked and eyeless, VHS tapes stacked like gravestones, and drawings, childish sketches smeared in crayon, each one showing children crying, hands reaching through bars. She turned toward me, her voice barely audible. These are the ones who stopped watching. I froze, my stomach knotted when I realized Boots was gone. From somewhere deep in the trees came his scream, raw, agonized, nothing like a cartoon monkey should sound. I remember pausing the video, my hand trembling over the keyboard. I wanted to close it, delete it, pretend I hadn't seen any of it, but I couldn't. Something about the episode wouldn't let me. The window stayed open, pulsing faintly, waiting for me to hit play again. When I pressed play again, Dora wasn't in the clearing anymore. She was sitting cross-legged, closer to the screen than ever, her face filling the frame. And then she said my name. Not the one I use online, not some generic placeholder, but my real name, the one tied to an old email account I hadn't touched in years. Her eyes didn't blink as she leaned forward. "You're next, why are you still here?" I know how this sounds, like every other cheap creepypasta gimmick, but this wasn't that. The way she spoke, the way her lips curled around my name, it wasn't scripted. It was personal. The forest path ended at a cave, its mouth yawning wide and impossibly dark. Dora stood at the entrance, turning her head slowly toward me one last time. Her smile twitched, stretching further than it should before she stepped inside. The screen went black. I thought it was over until I heard it. A child's voice, faint but clear, whispering from the speakers, "You found us." Then everything crashed. The video froze, my computer locked, and no amount of Control-Alt-Deleting would bring it back. For hours, the screen stayed dead, humming with static I swore I could still hear even after I unplugged it. When I finally woke up the next morning, my desktop had changed. The cheerful wallpaper I'd had was gone. In its place was an image of Dora, her eyes too wide, staring directly at me. I'm not going to show you that picture. Not because I don't want to, because I think it's dangerous. Ever since that night, sleep hasn't been the same. When I do drift off, I see her, standing at the foot of my bed, that cartoon smile stretched thin, whispering over and over, "We can't stop exploring." Sometimes she moves closer, her hand reaching toward me, but I always wake before she touches my face. Daylight offers no comfort. I'll be making coffee, scrolling through emails, trying to convince myself it was just a corrupted file, and then I'll hear it. Faint, distant, outside my window, children's voices chanting in unison, "Swiper, no swiping, swiper, no swiping." It doesn't fade with time. It follows me into every quiet moment. Like Dora's world didn't end with the tape, it leaked into mine. If you ever stumble across Dora Lost Ep Final, Avi, don't watch it. I don't care how curious you are or how much you think you can handle, Nickelodeon buried it for a reason. Some things aren't meant to be seen, and once you do, they don't let go. And if you've already watched it, if you've already seen what I saw, then maybe it's already too late. Listen closely, do you hear it? Say it with me, we did it.